You're listening to Trailblazers.fm, an interview-styled podcast that delves deep into bold conversations with successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Join us weekly to learn actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that you can put to use immediately on your journey to blazing your trail. And now, here's your host, my husband, Stephen A. Hart.
Hello and good morning. Happy Friday to you. Thank you so much for being here today. I am Stephen A. Hart. If this is your first time catching one of my live broadcasts, I am the host of Trailblazers.fm. I'm a marketer, brand strategist, and I'm most grateful for being Kristen's husband of 12 years. And together we have two amazing crumb snatchers. And I spend my days trying to inspire and elevate the voices of diverse peoples all over the world, right? And I have a podcast that I've hosted for the past 5 years called Trailblazers.fm. And today I'm joined by a dear friend who's been featured on the podcast, and we've had the conversation a number of times, and even beyond the podcast, somebody that, you know, pulls me out the weeds of my own mental strife and issues. Miss Karen M. Allen is joining us this morning. Karen, good morning, my dear friend. How are you? I'm unmuting you and you're unmuting you too.
Who's unmuting? Good morning. Thanks for having me back, Stephen. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. How you doing?
I'm good. I have my coffee. It's nice and full.
So do I. I brought the whole dang French press down here this morning. Yes. And I told my buddy Sean Dove I'm rocking one of CBME has been our sponsor for Trailblazers almost exclusively. And I'm going to put on my headset because I'm getting a little bit of echo. So yeah, Sean has been my my sponsor for pretty much the duration of Trailblazers. And a couple years ago, CBME celebrated their let me see if we can do this. All right. You hear me, Karen?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Good stuff. So a couple years ago, Sean and CBME celebrated their 10th anniversary, and I got, you know, a 10th anniversary mug, and I sent him this morning because all the CBME is now gone. And I'm like, if there's somebody that has used their mug, it's me.
It's this guy.
Yeah. So
I love that. Okay, so then let me ask, black creamer or creamer and sugar?
Mostly black. I never use sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and then I'll add creamer, but a lot of times it's just me and the French press hanging for the day, straight black.
I love it. I have this almond creamer that I fell in love with, and it is so good. It's so good.
Yes. Good morning to some of our family, our Blazer Nation community hanging with us. Sheldon, good morning. Annette, good morning. Ken, Ralston's here from Jamaica. Big ups to you. Thank you so much for rocking with us this morning. As always, Karen is somebody who is a growth mindset guru. Dare I say guru? The expert.
Obsessed. It's an obsession.
Obsession. And we're going to talk a bit about that in a second. Karen, I still love to talk from a place of gratitude, and you and I have been extremely transparent in our conversations before. This week was challenging. I don't know about those tuning in, but this week was a rough week. And you know, I echoed that sentiment to several of my dear friends this week, just to voice what I was feeling. And many of them reached out and said, sorry, sorry having to deal with this right now. And I realized that it's not so much that it was new, because it's something that's been ongoing, right? The ongoing struggle for the last year and a half, that I'm dealing with so many additional challenges, but we all are, right? But this week in particular, all of it came on at once, right? Sometimes it's you dealing with this week and that next week, but it was like by Tuesday, everything was on my shoulders at one time, right? From the now normal, never normal kid situation, right? We've had 2 kind of COVID scares at their school in the last 2-3 weeks, and having to get the little guy, tested midweek just to make sure he was good, to dealing with the ongoing challenges of my dad, to dealing with the work pressures, and dealing with his business back in Jamaica. And it's just like everything is mounting on. And I will say that, and you and I have talked about, the benefit of my going through therapy. And Karen's been somebody who's spoken to me about tools to use to be able to, have a good mind on you so that you can grow, right? And I am grateful. I am grateful this morning that I had the tools this week. Even 6 months ago, I probably would have had a couple panic attacks this week, being real. But I was able to spend time, shutting down the laptop and taking some real walks outside.
A walk that turned into a hike.
That Karen Allen told me last. We had, one of these conversations for the podcast to not turn on the tech while I'm walking, and be one, with God and with the outdoors. And right before we got on, I'd started doing these Psalms and push-ups late last year. And I will say this morning, in the anxiety of this week, I have spent time walking with God. I don't know, those of you who are believers, you'll connect to this. If you're not, just hang with me. But this morning, I'm walking the dog before we jump on our call. And I opened the Faithful app, and the verse of the day was Psalm 46:10. And it was read from the TPT version, and it says, surrender your anxiety. And I just paused right there, and I'm like,
that's what I call a God hug.
Right?
When something divine happens in the moment that your soul is crying out for it, and nothing is like blocking that, and it's just so right in front of you, and you're just like, oh, I needed that. Oh.
I so needed that. Surrender your anxiety. Be still. And realize that I am God. I am God above all the nations, and I'm exalted throughout the whole earth. And the entire live stream chat says amen. So I just want to acknowledge, before we talk about building a growth mindset, I thought it was important to acknowledge that we aren't just building a mindset independent of all the noise of this past year, right? You're a whole person. And I know, like me, many of you have families, children, very busy lives and careers and businesses to run. And in the noise of all that, we are asking you to be very deliberate about your intention and your action and the steps you take to grow, and having a certain mindset about how you do that. You know, I'm a, you know, digress again, but this week I was thinking about actually last night, and I was thinking, Karen, that, and I said this to Annette at some point, you know, before, and she said, Stephen, you're very pessimistic. And I'm like, no, it's real. Like, we're all going to die. Right. And I was thinking, you know, no matter how divided we are, and we live in such a divided society, Democrat, Republican, Christian, not, you know, black, white, I could go on, right? There's such a divide, and it's like, you know, I'm going to kill you if you're on the other side of that fence, right? But the one thing every human on this planet shares is that we will die. And I don't mean to sound pessimistic when I it's not a negative. It's a real fact of life. We are going to pass away, right? And I don't know if that happens today. I don't know if that happens 50 years from now. So my intentions are to be clear for me, first and foremost, what God wants me to do in the time that I'm here, and be very deliberate about how I get to that place, right? And that thing, that mission isn't always tied to career, right? Your identity isn't necessarily tied to the job you have or any one thing in particular, right? But having clarity about, you know, your life as a whole. I always start, as I did today, you know, saying, hey, you know what? I'm Kristen's husband. I'm, you know, these two crumb snatchers, daddy, right? And that's my anchor, right? I'm a child of God, and, you know, I am a family man. In addition to that, I'm a marketer, and this and that and that and that and that, right? But no one thing defines me. I love all that I do, and I have a big picture vision. So I'm gonna stop chatting and you know, hear your vibe on some of this, because this is just all that's jammed into my head this morning and last night, that I think takes hold in this conversation about mindset.
I mean, yes, we can talk about mindset, but man, so much is coming up for me because of what I have been really just chewing on over the last week as well, which came from my pastor from Mosaic Church down in Winter Garden, Florida. And I went back and I was listening to some old messages that what he's been doing for the last, ever since he started the church, is going through the Bible in chronological order and like breaking it down. And I do mean very literally verse by verse.
Wow.
He never skips over a verse that has all the names. He never skips over something that seems like it's just a basic, you know, parable. He goes over everything, and he gives us like so much backstory. And one of the areas that we're in Ephesians, or the series I'm watching is in Ephesians, and it's in chapter 4. But interestingly enough, you know, the first 3 chapters were spent kind of setting the stage for what is one of my favorite books in the Bible, because Ephesians is so practical. This is how you show up. This is what you do. This is how you treat people. And I love that. I'm like, yes, just can we cut through all the other stuff? Like, tell me what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm like that in life. And so I love checklists. I'm like, just what do I need to get done? But the way that the stage was set entering into these practical takeaways was really around what is the number one thing that we were created to do, and what is our mission here? And it is to be united. That is why he gave us Jesus, because he wanted to unite the Jews and the Gentiles being everyone else, right? And he's like, all tribes, all nations, you are going to be united. But he explains how we're going to do this. And I love how you mentioned this, like, regardless of what struggles we have, regardless of what income we have, what color we are all connected through what is how I describe heart to heart, the human experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
The human experience. And that's why when you and I connect and we talk about stuff like mindset, I genuinely feel in my bones the pain and the anxiety and the stress that you are going through. And I can feel it not because I'm walking in your shoes, but because I'm human and I know what those emotions bring. And I think so often we get tripped up and blinded and we hold on to the things that are different, right? But the differences don't have to divide us. If anything, they could just invoke more empathy, trying to. And so I love the conversations around mindset because I think it's a great opportunity for us to be reminded that we are all connected through this human experience. And yes, to your point, which this was also talked about. It's funny. You talked about a lot that my pastor was talking about. I'll have to send you those sermons, but at the end of the day, yeah, we all are going to die. We live on, as he calls it, so lovely, like a planet of death, right? We are going to die here. That's what happens. But it's more so about like, how are we spending this time? What intentionality do you have for your life, for your work, for your relationships? And with my clients, I actually like to call this your legacy question. Who do you want to be?
Yes. Or what do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, but I always stay with who do I want to be, because then that helps me decide, like, okay, what work am I going to do? Oh, how am I going to have this conversation? Oh, how am I going to show up as a mom? So if I think like,
so you can live your legacy.
I want to be a healthy, happy, whole person. Though that is my definition for, and I'm not saying I'm going to be happy all the time, but I want to bring that joyful energy. I'm not going to feel whole all the time, but I am going to stay true to myself and walk in my alignment. Like, I'm not going to make all healthy decisions, but my intentionality is to be healthy and stronger day over day, right? To be better.
Yeah.
And so I just keep that at the center. And, like you said, for your crumb snatchers, my little one, he is my North Star and always has been.
Yeah. North Star, who's almost gonna be taller than you here in a minute, right?
Can we just like call that out for a second? He literally was standing in front of me last night and he was like right here. And I thought to myself, it's over. It's over. He's gone. Like, this is happening. He's going to just sprout up in the next 2 years.
I don't know if you saw, I posted a picture this week on Instagram of our daughter next to my wife, and I'm like, you probably have about 6 months, mama.
That fast.
They're springing up. Listen, I'm throwing up some of Karen's links. Real quick, you want to follow Karen on Instagram. She's the most hilarious person with reels.
I just have to say, you know this. I used to go through this experience of like putting so much weight on social media. You have to be this, you have to be that. And like, yes, for some people who are building a business, that is very important. But then I had this like breakthrough in my mindset of how I am going to, enjoy social media. And I used to always be very like, I have to put my like corporate face on. I have to make sure that everything is buttoned up. I have to be super, super Christian and make sure. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be all of me. Okay. I'm going to be the 90s baby.
Exactly.
I'm going to be the one who's singing Drake and who's also singing Maverick City music. I'm going to be all of that. I'm going to be straight. I'm going to be curly. I'm going to be whatever I want. Right. I'm going to bring it all. And it has just released so much pressure from trying to be perfect in someone else's eyes. And now I can just show up and be me. And everybody's like, oh my God, I love it. I'm like, okay, good. Thank you for that feedback.
I love it. I'm always like, I need to figure out this reel thing. I need to probably get a training session with you on reels.
Figure it out. Just lean in. Just have fun.
That's right. So if you guys haven't figured out by now, Karen and I have like totally no direction in this conversation. No, we just wanted to come and rap and talk a bit. So if you have questions, I definitely throw them in the chat. But Karen, I wanted to pick your brain because I've always said to you, you have an amazing brand that I could literally have you teaching my branding course, right? And you laugh at me and you say, Stephen, you're talking all this gibberish. But for those of you who are looking for a great case study of somebody who has a very polished website, a very polished brand footprint. Karen's always on it. So go check her out at karenallen.co. If you want to check out prior conversations we've had about Karen's backstory and all that jazz, definitely hop on over to tbpod.com and just search Karen Millsap. And we talked about that in September, so we won't go there today. But I wanted to pick your brain because you're somebody that's going through this ongoing pivot of your career focus. And can we talk a bit about what you are focused on right now and maybe the why behind that?
Yeah. So I've been working on brand messaging, and I kept hitting this wall because I was trying to say what was in my heart perfectly. And then I realized, because I journal a lot, that all of the things that were coming through in this brand message, because I am going through a bit of a rebrand, in the sense where I'm really putting my work at the center and like not making it about me, because I've never wanted this to be about me. And so as I'm trying to capture what this looks like, it's funny, I went right back to why I started. And it helped me to realize, and actually your voice was in my head. I said this to my business coach. I said, I've had people who have encouraged me and said, you are so authentic. Your brand is so authentic. And I just kind of, shrugged that off. But I think what's happened is through the evolution of, like, when I started off, my company was called Widows at Work. Then it transitioned to agency. Then it transitioned to the grief consultant. And then I just left that. And I was like, I'm just going to go with Karen Allen until I figure out what am I really calling all of this. And consistently, regardless of the name change, my heart has been to help people just understand that life is messy and no one is perfect, but you can make it beautiful in the mess. How do you do that? You do that with your mindset. You do that with intentionality. You do that through your connections. There's so many different ways that we do that, but at the very root of it, it's really being your authentic self. So when I was thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, I've gotten this positive feedback. I was ignoring it before. I didn't realize that this was actually something that I am bringing to the world. I just thought I was just showing up and just trying to share, whatever would be helpful. But then I broke through another level of it wasn't like I was feeling shame, but I was like, gosh, I keep changing. I keep pivoting. And I was just feeling bad about that. And I realized Apple doesn't have one product. When you go down the bread aisle, there's not one type of bread. There's all these evolutions of brands, and it's celebrated because they continue to meet us where we are. And so as I continue to evolve, my core mission is to share what I go through, because again, it's the human experience. And it's not just about the pivotal moment. When I lost my husband, yes, that did throw me on this trajectory of personal growth and being more mindful. But everything in between there is also part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I stand here today knowing fully that if I'm walking in alignment, it looks like me teaching people how to make life beautiful and how you can make sound decisions and feel secure in those decisions because they are what's best for you. Right. And if you do that, this is what I think I am so excited about, sharing with the world. I've never once worked with a client who came to me for personal development coaching for just themselves. Never once. And I don't put a lot of I do all this coaching. People come to me, they find me, and it just happens to be that our souls are connected, right? And so what I realize is that every client came because they want to be better so they can also be better for their family, their friends, their business owners, and then because they want that to also make a ripple effect in the world. That's literally why I started doing what I was doing, because I said I'm going to be better for me so I can be better for Caleb, so we can make a better impact on this world. And so that is that's exciting for me, that I am able to present this and just offer it to people who are on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So you're working on the brand message. Another thing that I've always fought with you on is who you're serving. Right?
Yes.
identifying your audience, your people, your tribe. Where are you in that struggle?
All right. So the backstory, folks, for everybody who's listening, is whenever I went to Stephen, he would always say lovingly, but also like very sternly, I would answer the question. I would say everybody, because this is a human problem. This is everybody is going through this. And he would say, no, you have to have a person. You have to have a person. And so I took this last year, a little over a year, to look at the people who have come and said, I want to be a part of this, or what do I do? And I actually realized even though these first two don't matter in the sense where it will extend beyond that, this is what has been what has come to me repeatedly. Gen Xers and millennials have come to me. And I realize because they are at a time in their life where they have done everything status quo. Oh, let me go to college. Oh, let me get this job. Oh, let me get married. And they realize I have lived life based on other people's expectations, and I have not defined what is right for me. And I want to slow all of that stuff down. And I just want to step into the fullness of life, because to your point, some of them may be thinking, yeah, eventually I'm going to die. Am I going to die doing all of this? And it doesn't make me happy. So that's one thing I noticed, like the age group has really been Gen Xers and millennials. And they're at this point in their life where like they want more. They want to live the fullest expression of themselves and create I call them perfectly balanced life. Mm-hmm. Then I also notice it's parents. And I think the reason why parents come to me, and I'm not saying I don't have people who are not parents who I work with or who are, in my tribe, but I think they realize that what I do for myself matters, for my little crumb snatchers, as you so lovingly call them. Yeah. And then the other thing that I've noticed, and this is just bizarre, I actually meant to ask you this. Most of the people who come to me for, one-on-one work, like my corporate clients that's a very easy to define. But my one-on-one clients all happen to be some sort of athlete in their previous life. Like they played sports growing up, and I'm not saying they're professional, but did you ever play sports growing up?
No.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So the reason why
but I didn't, I never did. And I went to a high school that's predominantly known for soccer and for cricket, and I just never vibed on either.
Okay, so then I what I was trying to figure out with that is like, why is this a thing? I think it's because they like a game plan, because they're like, yeah, give me the tools, like show me what to do, like I can, but I will say this, what it generally speaking, because I know you're like, I can't just say it's a human thing. It really is about the person who says, I take personal development seriously, because it's not just about me, it's about my impact on the world. And then when I look at my corporate clients, they're like, yeah, we're not just looking at our business, we're looking at our people. We care about our people, and we want to bring a message, and we want to bring a speaker who's going to give them the tools so they can be happy, healthy, whole people.
Yeah. So I want to be happy, healthy, whole, like Sheldon here, and Sheldon saying, hey, what are some tips, right, that I can take into my day to fight against these obstacles, to be happy, healthy, whole? What do you say?
There's so many. Well, okay, so I don't want to overlap. I actually would love to hear from you first. What are some things that you do, because you're in the thick of it? So I think that'll give a really good perspective. And then I'll add on to that. But what are some things that you do to try and maintain a positive mindset in the midst of these obstacles? And and share the ones that are working for you. There's some that don't work for everybody.
Absolutely. So the challenge that I have to the negative is that I am prone to quickly think of the what ifs. And I get dialed into the anxiety of it. It for me, as I've shared with you in the past, is oftentimes those what ifs are the absolute worst case scenario of what could play out. Mm-hmm. Right. And it legit caused me anxiety attacks. Mm-hmm. And I feel like between my therapist and you, I said, hey, like, let's come back to the present. Right. And so it might sound, fluffy and just, simple, too simple. But I kid you not, I said it at the beginning of this conversation. Especially this week, I have been quickly taking myself away from this office, and getting out in the open. If you follow me on Instagram, just about every day you've seen my stories. It's me on a walkway with a dog walking, right? So removing myself from the noise of everybody and everything, and being able to recenter myself in and Sheldon, I know you're a runner. Sheldon, asking, he's a runner, he's a business owner, he's on our live last week, right? And he's down in Trinidad, where we'd love to be right now.
Yes.
But it begins for me, Karen, with being able to get to a place where I can get some margins, because I sit at this table and that noise fills up this paper, right? And there's no margins. And I have no space to think, to clear my mind, to be present and say, hey, you know what? These what ifs don't exist right now. And I can actually control the situation 1 hour, one step at a time, and be able to direct my energy and focus to where I can have some control over what actually happens next. And it's being very strategic about saying, all right, all of this outside the bubble is scary, but I'm going to trust that if I take this next step that I know can have a positive outcome, and then follow that the next day with the next step, and just trust that things fall into place. And more times than not, things tend to work themselves out, and not in the way we thought that they could in that worst case. So the mindset is one of, hey, let me do what I can do right now with the tools and the resources and the people around me. Let me speak out, right? I tell my people all the time, you have ideas, you have thoughts, positive or negative, they're in your head, get them out, right? It's a positive idea for your business or your career, put it down on paper. If it's a negative thought, we boil up, we can't even breathe sometimes, right? And we are like living in this assumption in our head. And like I said to you earlier, I voiced that idea, right? I was coming back this week when I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack. I text my wife and she came right out and she was like, hey, what are we doing? I talked to, several of my guy friends, friends in general, both guys and girls, and said, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And I got input from different sides, right? To be able to be like, hey, how can we help you think through this? And so I think it's really important that in the noise of it all, that you have that inner circle that you can also speak to and be very candid with. And I am more open than the average bear, right? I'll jump on a live stream and broadcast this to the world. And I'm cool with, just not putting out just the pretty family picture, but, talking about what we all going through.
Because that's not human, by the way.
Right.
It's part of it. But, to build off of that, and I just want to we talked about this one-on-one, but Sheldon, I want to give you a little more depth to what Stephen just said when he was saying that, he was thinking about all the different what ifs. So your thoughts are a focus point, right? It's like a point of entry into your mind. And so if you are thinking about something negative, you're going to draw in all things negative. If you're thinking about something positive, you start drawing in positivity. But the focal point for Stephen, what he just mentioned, was the worry. Typically, worry and anxiety comes from thinking of things in the future. So that's why Stephen then said to bring yourself to the present. Because what happens is when we're thinking of things from the future, we typically catastrophize them. It is literally the worst case scenario. And so if you remember, we did an exercise one time where, as he mentioned, you voice all of that. What is the worst case scenario? Okay, get it out. Let's just put it all out there. Now, what would be the best case scenario? Because truth is, it falls somewhere in the middle. So if you notice that your thoughts are anxious and they're worrisome, you're usually thinking about something in the future which is currently out of your control. But if you bring yourself to the present and say, okay, right now in this moment, what can I control? It'll help you bring yourself back to a state of calm. And then if you do need to talk it out, just so you can like purge all of that negative energy, don't just talk about the worst case scenario. Balance it by talking about the best case scenario, and that'll help to bring you back to the middle. And I actually just posted a meditation on my YouTube, and it's a mind shift meditation. It's only about 4 minutes long. But what I do is I walk you through, okay, think about something that's stressing you out, and now let's shift that to think about it in a more positive light. So it's a tool out there that's available. If you want to use it, you can grab it. But that's something you can also do on your own. It's like when you notice you're thinking about the worst case, just shift slightly and start thinking about the best case scenario.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Love that. And by the way, let me just do this. Let me share a couple of how is YouTube working out for you?
I don't do much on it. Again, me and social, I'm not worried about it. I'm like, I just show up when I can, and then we'll see what happens.
I feel like you are very active with Instagram.
You do?
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't know. I remember thinking something was happening with Caleb, and I was like, ooh, I should capture this. Do I take a picture? What should my caption be? And I was like, I am completely missing the moment. I'm not doing that anymore. And so I just stopped caring too much, I think.
And in reverse, Layla is like, dude, do not post me on Instagram. Layla absolutely hates me posting pictures of her.
Aww.
She's like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing, Dad?
It's funny how our kids pick up on all that, right?
Absolutely. And they're night and day different. Nigel couldn't care less. Layla's a product of her mom. I swear it's like a mini me, through and through.
Yes, I love that.
But I appreciate you kind of talking to that what if. I was reflecting a couple months ago on the acronym FAIR, right? False evidence appearing real. And what you talked about, anxiety, we're talking about anxiety is really this false representation, this what if that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all false, right? And again, coming back to those of you who are believers, I was reading Philippians 4:6 that, tells you don't worry about anything, pray about everything, tell God what you need, and, thank Him for all He's done. And then if you go 2 verses down, it actually, tells you, and let me not mess up the word here. I'll tell you exactly what it says. It says, and now fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and so on. But, fixing your thoughts on what is true. And, so to your point, instead of fixing our thoughts on the negative, on the things that aren't real, on the fear, on the anxiety, on the worry, right? That He tells us, don't worry, right? Don't be anxious, don't worry, don't fear. But fix your thoughts on what is true. And those things aren't true.
Mm-hmm. You know what I think is amazing? This really came from this book, Switch on Your Brain. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I love this book is because Dr. Caroline Leaf actually talks about, she brings in scripture, but she talks about the neuroscience of how we can rewire our brain with our thoughts. So for everything that is scientific in this book, she points it back to scripture. And so what I think is so amazing and incredible is knowing that our minds are so complex. There's so much biblical truth and direction and tips and tools on how to maintain that inner peace by paying attention to your thoughts, pointing them in the right direction, right? I mean, he literally gives us a play-by-play and even tells us the battlefield is in the mind. He never said like the battlefield is in your relationships. The battlefield is going to be trying to figure out what work you're going to do. No, because regardless of all those external circumstances or, factors, it actually comes down to the way you think about it, the way you approach it. That is what shapes your reality. So I'll give you a quick example. If you're driving, and this is like, think of this as like Karen on the Beltway and then Karen like in Florida, right? On like the toll roads or something. So Karen on the Beltway would, if somebody's cutting me off or going fast, I'm leaning into that energy. I'm going right. You what? You're going to cut me off? What's happening here? Oh, I'm following you for an hour, right? Like it's all of that. I kid you not. When I moved to Florida, and it was just like probably a product of my environment, right? Things just started shifting. Anytime somebody, and this was also through personal growth, but anytime I would encounter an aggressive driver, instead of leaning into that energy, I would think to myself, I hope they're okay. Like, I hope wherever they're going, maybe there's something that is just, they have to go. There's an accident, or they're late, or whatever. I would not take it personally. Where for some reason, a stranger passing me on the road, I would take personally on the Beltway, right? And what I noticed is the exact same situation can happen, but my mindset is what created my reality in that. That is true for everything in life. Even your kid, like Caleb got a C on a test, on a math test, and he got a D on the next math test and was crushed, right? I mean, in tears. And I could have started screaming, we studied. What were you doing? Right? And so I thought to myself, that's not the kind of mom I want to be. I don't want him to feel bad from this. What do I want him to do from this? I want him to grow from it. Okay, so then what am I going to say to him in this moment? Now I'm thinking through all of this as he's crying and get on. And so I said to him, Caleb, honey, I'm not worried about your grade. But what I do love to see is that it matters to you. It doesn't feel good. So my question is, what do you want to do about it? How do you want to fix this situation? Like, how do you want to feel more prepared for the next one so you don't feel like this again? And he came up with his own. He's like, okay, we'll study in between now and the retest. I want to stay after school with Miss Bullard. And then I want to also get a tutor so I can feel more confident. Like, he was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do to not go.
Wow.
So again, I'm like, and I let him cry. He was crying for like 15 minutes. I mean, his face was like red, broken out in hives. And I'm like, you can go through all of that. I'm not telling you not to feel that. But once you get through all of that, let's think about how we want to approach this situation. Again, that is something you get to do in every moment in life. You get to choose how you approach the situation.
Gems. Listen, I'm going to let these people go about their work day. Show me that book one more time. Switch on your brain. Switch on your brain. Who's the author? Leaf?
Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Caroline Leaf. Awesome.
It's incredible. It's an incredible book.
Karen, where I've been telling, there's a banner rolling here, but if people are listening, hop on over to for your website, that's your Instagram, but you can hop on over to KarenAllen.co, right?
I dropped the M so that you don't have to work too hard, guys. You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate that. KarenAllen.co, and check out Karen on Instagram, and definitely here on LinkedIn. We're streaming in a bunch of places this morning, but thank you so much for this conversation. You're always welcome within the Blazer Nation and on our platform. And I know you have some big things coming down the pike. Want to talk about any of it yet, or you're holding on?
I would just say follow me, and you will see all of the big things that are coming in the next 8 weeks.
Yes, good stuff. So thank you so much. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the weekend. Yeah. Big ups to Caleb for letting us steal some time with you this morning. He's
funny. I was like, I got to get on this show with Mr. Steven. He was like, okay, have a good show, mommy. Bye.
Love it. Well, enjoy the day, Karen. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Big love,
guys.
Everyone.
Yes. Enjoy your weekend. Hit me up in the comments. Hit us up and let us know, what you took away from today's conversation, and what your plan is to approach things more positively, right? Going forward, going into the weekend, how are you going to set your mindset in a way that is productive going into this next week. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Cheers. Thanks for spending time with us today. If we aren't yet connected, let's keep the conversation going on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, we grow when you subscribe, share, and invite others to check us out. We believe that others who consume these stories will be moved to make significant changes that have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Blaze Nation, go out today and keep blazing your